right away today. She may join us in a few minutes when she gets back from where she's at. And we'll look forward to seeing her when we see her. And in the meantime, I'm going to give it my best shot at doing BG5 Live today. So I want to first say welcome to everybody and welcome to our panelists. And I want to say hello to Anik. Maybe you can say hi, and glad to have you with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shelley, for having me. I just had my kickoff yesterday as the instructor of the current foundation class, which made me really proud and happy. And today, lucky for me, Trait 64, it's my core essence. So I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's wonderful. Even better. Awesome. Awesome to have you. Thanks for joining us. And Andy, lovely to see you here today as well. I'm so glad you came along to join us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I love it when I can make it here in time and manage to shave and put on a shirt to be online and things like that. Yeah, very glad to be here.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us. And Anna, lovely to see you today too. Thanks for joining.
Certainly. I love being here. And yeah, I have my little pre-ritual. I've got sweatpants on the bottom, but a decent top on the for the camera, for all of you lovely people that are joining us. So thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Anna. Yes, we've all got our nice shirts on top. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody who's joining us today. And today we're going to be looking at trait 64, which is about making sense of confusion. And this is also the beginning of September. This is our first September session. So we'll take a look at what September is all about. And it's so interesting to see this emotionally inspired confusion to find meaning in the past, to resolve conflict, push upward, working on what's been spoiled. So I don't know if you remember this in terms of the longer view that Karen's been doing in the Navigating Through 2022 series, but this is a really interesting time where we've got all three of our inspiration traits activated in this week. And if we look at what starts us off this month, is the abstraction, which is the 64, which is about confusion as before we're completing this cycle. This is all and I know Karen has this 3 times in her design. She's got a lot of this going on. So I hope that she can join us when she gets here. And what comes next week is the realization, which is on the other side of the 64, which is the trait that I have. And so Karen and I often work well together, me helping her make sense of confusion. And I know I can get really confused until it all of a sudden clicks into place and makes sense. And then we move to the 6 of friction in the emotional intelligence center, feeling, emoting, and sensitivity, and finding that conflict. And we know that friction is necessary for growth, that nothing really grows unless we have to come up against something that forces us to, I love Anna's analogies of the seed breaking out of its shell and starting to grow. That's always what the 6 reminds me of. And then having the determination to push upward, which is about the love of the body and coordinating all of it together. So that little seed being able to burst out with the friction and having the determination to grow and keep moving upward, the love of being in physical form, or the love of being in the body. And then we go to the 5 or the 18, which is all about correction and all about what it is we need for survival and the survival instinct. What do we have to fix that's been spoiled that will allow us to have that vitality in life again? So it's a really interesting month we have ahead of us, and it'd be interesting to see how this shows up in the world and shows up in life. Karen also wanted me to point out that the 61 is at play again until November 10th. The 61 is in our truth and transformation. And this is the last time that we're going to have this inner truth and transformation for approximately another almost 250 years. My gosh, that's an amazing time for us to be here alive and experiencing this as our truth and transformation as we go through this this inspiring time we're about to enter, where we get to reflect and maybe be confused for a little while, maybe face a lot of doubts with the 63 to get to our inner truth and transformation. So yeah, I'm wondering, is there anything that any of you see that you wanted to point out about this or add to this?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, with the 61, since we're talking about that and sort of this last little phase for a long time, we're also headed into Mercury Retrograde, which is a really good time for reflecting, redoing, remodeling, reworking, all the things, sort of back up and move forward. So in terms of this 61, it's, it really relates to vast intelligence, consciousness, all of that stuff. So when you have unfinished business or you're trying to maneuver and redo something, sometimes it takes the practical part of rewriting the script or paying that bill you forgot last month or whatever, the backup, redo, and then move forward. It opens the availability for the 61, for the uncluttered truth to come in for you.
Wow. Thanks, Anna. I was just noticing too, the description here for inner truth. It's the quality is appeal, the profound attunement to the collectivity that can lure the public to a truth, inspiration that can bring clarity to the collective. So this is about all of us finding clarity in this inner truth and inspiration. I love what you said, Anna, about it really helping each of us come to our own conclusions about things and get really clear on what our own inner truth is. I'm just wondering, I realize now that Karen has a slick way of pulling up your charts. I know where they are, but this is going to be messy for a second. So let me see. Now, have we got, is there anything else, Annika or Anik or Andy, that you wanted to add to about any of the 3 inspiration traits, the fact that they're all online right now for this next little while?
Maybe if I may go first, it's just a whole lot of pressure in all our heads in terms of finding the answers. And I can feel it, not only myself, I mean, obviously I have 64, 63, but now also 61. However, I get trait 24 being connected right now. So I feel the pressure, I feel what's going on right now, and I can see it with all people around me. And actually, I was not aware of the fact that we have in the truth now for the last time in truth and transformation for the next 250 years. So just enjoy it and see what's happening would be my advice at this point in time.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that is such a good point. A lot of pressure in our minds to, help us. And we may be feeling very confused or doubtful and unsure of what's going on in these times. Andy, anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I don't know if this is a little out of the ballpark, but I noticed that my meditation teacher has 61 as his grounding balance. And he's definitely, like, he leads the spiritual center, and he's very, very much talking about, it's a time of confusion and leading everyone through it, and that it's a fruitful time for transformation. And this is he's very grounded in that. So.
Wow, yeah, that's what an amazing place to be offering people that for him to be able to ground people in finding their own truth and transformation, and really recognizing what pressure we're all under here to transform into our finding our own uniqueness and finding our own being aligned with our own design and getting to know our design. And it's no wonder that BG5 is emerging at this time. I see Noni had a question. Now let me just see if I can Nani, yes. Let me press this button. There we go. You can join us to do what would you like to ask or tell us?
Thank you so much. You're doing such a wonderful job. Sort of with the 61 here, along with the confusion and doubt in this undefined head center, it's almost as if Pluto is giving this, what's of value to know or not, being on the 6th line. And what is the heresies out there that are of value, you know, those inner truths of other people's. Sort of reminded me of one stark moment that a friend of mine who has been in her experiment for many, many years, somebody came in and decided they wanted to just share all this stuff. And she stopped and said, you know, I don't think this is a question or something I need to know about, so I'm going to excuse myself. And I learned a lot in that moment of what it means to have an undefined head, and how to just take in just anybody's heresy or inspirations and questions, so to speak, or what they want to kind of say. So it was very a role model teaching moment in regards to an undefined head. And again, here we have confusion and doubt with that. So I think it's a really important time for us to contemplate those inner truths of others and ourselves, and if it's of value to know it or not. So thank you for allowing me to speak on that.
Wow, thanks, Nanny. That's so wonderful. I love how you described that, and really recognizing the difference between having the openness. My mind is completely open, and so I experience that. And for people who have it fully defined all the time, being able to broadcast that focus and help us stay focused and zero in on things. I really appreciate both sides of it, but something that you just said, oh gosh, my mouse is quick here. Thank you for that. I'm going to today's theme. Here we go. Let's dive into a little bit more about what the 64 is about too. So this is about the hang on, I got to move my thing around here. About before completion, that inspired confusion, this pressurized mental activity. This is what we were just talking about, is recognizing that all of us may be feeling this this pressure in our mental center, but it's kind of like a transition, like a birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. So I know often when Karen talks about the confusion, and just even having been going through things that are coming through for Karen that are very confusing at first for her, the pressure can feel really strong, and it does feel like a birthing process as we go through and make sense out of the confusion through this reflection. So this is in the past. The 64 is in the looking at the past, making sense through reflecting. So this is really a time for us to be going back and reflecting on everything that's been happening, and especially in these past 400 years of the era of planning, and especially, you know, as 2020 with COVID kicked off all of this massive confusion that we see going on in the world right now. So this is really a time that's pressuring all of us to try to make sense of what's really been going on in the last couple of years, especially, but even further back. I know I tend to do a lot of this. I have the 47, so I'm constantly going back through reflection, trying to make sense of what's happening. So this is really about recognizing that while we might be in this real state of confusion, is to just enjoy the confusion. And I know that before I understood and learned about BG5, that I had a lot of mental pressure in my open mind, constantly, taking in all kinds of tons of information and trying to make sense out of it. It was something that my brain both loved to do and got overwhelmed doing. And when I learned about BG5, I started to understand that we don't need to be quite so concerned about figuring it out so much as just allowing the confusion to be there and allowing your mind to do its work on its own. It's going to come to its state of clarity on its own anyway, and anything we try to do to force it or push it or make it happen quicker really just puts more pressure on ourselves. So this, I definitely experienced these strings of disconnected memories and images and experiences. This is kind of a constant, I know, in my mind, and I wonder how it is for others of you, that we can chat about that. Just trying to make sense of the flashes of things that come and trying to piece them together. So just allowing your past experiences to just simply stream through your mind until the message becomes clear, until that aha, that clarity comes for you. And I remember a teacher I had when I took some previous training, always used to say that confusion is that state that happens right before clarity. And I always took that to heart, because it's okay to be confused. It's all right to let the confusion roll around until it becomes clear, because it will. So it's about really simply allowing your mind to watch the movie that's going on around you and not try so hard to make it make sense, to just allow it to be there and to really, I think this is one of the things, and Andy, you could probably speak to this, the mindfulness meditation, the ability to be able to just observe your thoughts as opposed to getting caught up in what you're thinking about and trying to make sense of what it all means and make meaning out of it. Maybe you might have something to add to that, Andy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say later, I have the 47, but not the 64. So the meditation certainly helps, because we'll get to the 47 later. But absolutely, the being able to stay in the present moment, and that doesn't mean you're ignoring what's happening, but you see it with real clarity and don't get caught in it. So you're much more likely to be able to process it in the way that the being is trying to process it, and not forcing insights or decisions, kind of trusting our own process. Meditation certainly helps there.
Awesome. I like that. Just trusting our own process. That's really kind of what this all comes down to, is trusting that what's happening is happening purposefully, and that when you do come to that clarity or get to that place where the meaning comes to you or things make sense, is then being able to recognize that you've come to that conclusion or made some sense out of something or got the aha. It is not always the right time to share it with somebody, though. The minute it comes to you, you may feel like doing that. You might be all excited that you finally figured it out and it all makes sense. But it's then, really relying on your decision-making strategy to know when the right timing is to share it with others. And I believe this is an invited channel strength. So it's likely that when somebody asks you for your insight on something, that they're most ready to hear it, and that timing will be the most correct time to share it with others. Wonderful. So I'm going to try and pull up now. Anik, you said you've got the 64, and Anna, do you have it in your design as well? Awesome. So I'm gonna quickly make a mess of the screen so I can pull up your chart. If I can do this.
Just go for it.
I know where they are, but I might have to turn off the slideshow so that I can find it and then pull it up. Like from current.
Perfect.
There we go.
You're a star.
Okay, here we go. So Anik, tell us your experience of having the 64 as your core essence.
Well, it's a challenge, I would say. I don't know whether it's due to the fact that I'm an evaluator, but I was totally convinced that I'm a totally mental driven person that's all about understanding and making sense out of confusion and finding solutions to all the doubts I have, and figuring out about my overall design was quite interesting to understand. Well, there's more than pressure of questions and finding the meaning in all of this. And when we look at the ideal world in terms of, okay, I'll wait for clarity, and I get someone like Andy around with 47 who will help me fix my confusion. However, in a daily business, it's really hard. Maybe it's because due to the fact that it's my core essence, I really feel it. I really am this trait at this point in time. And so it's totally difficult to say, okay, I'll take these bits and pieces of memories of experiences I had, and I'll just try to figure out what it's all for, what it all means. So I have to be extremely careful to not get lost in doubt and confusion, and to see the precious gift I have, the unique talent I have in terms of asking the right questions, in terms of maybe find the correct opposite trade, find the correct co-worker or whoever who we can then work out 64-47. However, in a daily business, it's quite a whole lot of pressure. I enjoy those questions I have. However, it needs some experience and observations to deal with it. That's my experience with all the confusion I have. And it's really something, when I read it's like giving birth, I can't process it totally within my system without understanding the meaning. So I get stuck. I get stuck with a question. I get stuck with confusion and say, why? Why is this all happening? What's the meaning of it? And as long as I don't have someone helping me with 47, like Andy or my mother especially, and I can make sense out of it, I get stuck at that. And understanding that every question, every pressure you have, 64, 63, is not for you, but for others, it helps. It helps navigating through life. And as Andy said beautifully, trust the process, observe it, and best of luck with it.
Wow. Thanks, Anik. That's awesome. I can only imagine. And just those subtle differences of recognizing some of the things you said, that number one, that whatever's going on in our mind is our outer authority here to help us serve others with. And that it's when we turn those questions and that confusion and that doubt in on ourselves that it gets really, really complicated and really confusing and really painful. And we can get caught up in the shadow side of that, where we're trying to fix our own problems. And really, we're only here to help others with their confusion and doubt, and your ability to ask those questions that can clarify confusion, and to ask the questions that are that bring doubt, that the things that you're doubting are often probably the things that people around you need to consider, which is why the questions come up for you. It's like, well, wait a minute, does this really work the way it's supposed to work? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? Being able to ask those questions and know what those questions are to ask, that can help people around you as well. And I also love what you said, that, you know, there's a reason we've all got unique designs. We're each here to work with others who've got the other side for us to help us get some clarity for ourselves. And it's how we all move forward together. Thanks so much, Anik. And here I go again. I'm going to just stop this and pull up another chart. Anna, let's pull up yours.
Yeah, I have the 64-47, which is a whole strength.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So, and the 64 is in, let's see, yeah, it's in my
values.
Yeah, values.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to watch my progression as I sort of review how I used this early on in my family. We were all educators, college presidents, all this stuff, and farmers. So it was a nice combination there. But I remember as a kid being around a lot of intellectual conversations, politics, religion, people expressing all that stuff. And it used to bore me to death and confuse me because it didn't make sense. And then, of course, as I matured, became an adult, all that stuff, I started realizing everybody has this whole catalog of experiences that are personal, that are collective, all kinds of stuff. And until you sort of know what, and I'm speaking right now from my design, until you sort of know what your values are, you don't know quite how to make sense of all that stuff. And I was talking, a couple examples here. I was talking with a friend last night. He is totally open. And he was talking about his work. And I said, well, do you have an outline? Because he was trying to explain, he's a fitness trainer. And he was going through, well, on the first week we do this, and the second week we go this, and then he was backing up, and then he was going forward, and then the third week, and then the first week, and then I was like, oh my goodness, but I knew what he did, so I could follow him. I said, well, do you have an outline of, do you have a progression? Do you have it written? Because I have it all on my phone, and I'll share it with you. It was like getting worse and worse, and it was fine. We sorted it out. I was actually giving him a little free 20-minute session. So I got to name that, that this is an example of an open energy. You've got inspiration and conceptualization, and you didn't know quite how to articulate it, how to share it. And so we spoke to that, but I thought, wow, that is really interesting, especially for someone like me. I've observed over the years how to actually make use of this. And I learned early on through lots of different projects. I used to sew, make the kids' clothes, make my clothes, all that stuff. So there's this progression. You have an idea, then you go get fabric or a pattern or these different parts you have to sort of collect and sort of put together, and then do this part and then that part, and then it's really messy in the middle of it. And then, but if you keep pursuing step by step, you come out with something that's beautiful. And the same thing with trying to make a photo album. Let's see, I've watched people like spread all the photos out on the table, and they're like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Because that's kind of what's going on in your head, is all this information. You can't do everything with it right away. You have to sort of let it emerge. What it's like, oh, okay, so maybe are we doing it by family? Are we doing it by date? Are we doing it by event and adventure? How are we organizing this? And something starts to kind of tell you how you want to put things in order, because this confusion is like the slide said, the transition from one state to another is usually where we get lost. Mm-hmm. If you just think about the classic, you're taking the groceries out of the car and you drop your car keys, and then you're trying to get in your house, and you're having to set down the groceries, and maybe something falls out of the, it's the classic sort of stuff that can happen when there's too many parts going on. But in Andy's reference to sort of this meditative, if you practice meditation or Tai Chi or some kind of thing that orients you through your body to where you are in present, your body starts to select what's most important in present time. And then that's when your body gives you feedback. Oh, this is where my keys went. you know, this is what I need to do next. This is the order that things are going on. So I've learned to just let all the busyness sort of float around instead of grabbing each thing, trying to, you know, do something with it. You don't really need to do something with all of this. It's not a doing kind of energy. It's a not only collective, but sort of a collecting energy. And then it starts to make sense, and then you can share it. When I realized I didn't have to have answers, it was like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's a relief. And I want to say one more thing, and maybe Andy, you can chime in on this. As an innovator, I've noticed that there's lots of things swimming around. You know, there's lots of prompts. And as an innovator, the decision-making strategy is that you're moved, and then you speak as you're moving, and things that you initiate through that process. But for me, I've noticed with all this activity in my head that I'm aware of lots of possible prompts, but they're not close enough yet to initiate until one literally makes sense to my body with 46. And then I can prompt that, I can initiate that. And I used to be very confused by that process before I understood design. It's like, oh, you know, I've got to do this, or I thought I had to do all those things that I was getting prompted by. But as an innovator, I can now just let the prompt occur. It's not me doing it, it's just for the others. Oh, here's something. Respond or not, or be delighted or not, or you know, feel recognized or not.
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Anna. I love a bunch of things that you pointed out there. You know, first off, just having both centers defined, having your, you know, being here to be an inspiration for us and to help us focus on things, to be able to help make sense of the confusion without trying too hard to make it happen. And I love how you tied that into being an innovator, and how you've learned how to just allow this to flow through you and let your body tell you when it's time to initiate something for others. That's amazing. Andy, do you sense that too? And then Rebecca's got her hand up, and I'll let you speak to that first.
Absolutely, I resonate. What came up was that's so clear, and I'm fine with that when things are brewing. And it's that there are times of waiting where, and I think I'm in one now, where there's a bit of struggle that I don't feel like anything's brewing, something's wrong, or I've got to figure something out. So yeah, still in the process of learning where the inspiration comes from, what it's like to be waiting, getting caught in doing things or speaking too soon.
Yeah, becoming more and more aware of that. Yeah, and I guess now with the 64 lit up this week, you'll have this connection as well, and we can talk about that in our next section when we get to how we get affected where we're connected.
Yes.
I'm going to let Rebecca jump in here. She's got something to add, and then we'll go to Lori.
Hi.
Hey, Rebecca.
So I feel confused. So I have it, it's unconscious, it's in my future direction. And I feel like so confused that I feel like I'm just waiting for answers. So all I'm doing is kind of doing the footwork, waiting for an answer. But at this stage, I don't even know what the question is. So anyway, all I can keep doing is like one foot in front of the other, but it's, and then I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but 2 nights ago. Oh, Lord. So my brain doesn't shut off all that often. And I was dead to the world. It's like my brain has been shut off for 2 days.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really weird. And that feels if it feels almost like a fog to get through. But anyway, it kind of comes and goes. So I'm hoping that it only happens like once or twice a year. So I'm in that space right now, but I'm going, I wonder if that's some of it, because it feels confusing. It feels like, again, I don't have answers to, it's not only that I don't have answers, I don't even have a question.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you got a little bit of reprieve for your poor brain.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole is your mind center is open like Anik's here, is it?
No, I have it's defined. I have the
Okay.
64. Yeah, I have it is in the unconscious. That's all.
Okay, got it. Got it. Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing your perspective on that. And yeah, I know this can feel like a lot of pressure, and being able to allow the thoughts to be there without getting caught up in them can be really challenging. People spend their whole life, trying to do just that. And like we were talking about, meditation's a great way to let go, and also just being aware of it and being aware that the pressure's there, for me anyways, allows me to feel a little bit more relaxed about it, and to let it go a little bit easier than I used to hang on to everything really tightly. And so I have found this helpful. Have you found that somewhat helpful, Rebecca, to just even know that it's there? And
well, yeah, I really enjoy these calls because it's going, oh, I wonder if that's playing a role. There's a transit going on.
right. Just being aware of what's happening.
And then it's also, but it's again always challenging because it's in the unconscious. So I'm going, whatever. So I guess I just kind of have to roll with it.
Right. Yeah. Recognizing, my goodness.
Well,
thank you for
not
sharing.
trying to force anything either.
Yeah.
And that's the good part. Yeah. And it's good to get that reinforced in the call.
Yeah, exactly. Just to make what is unconscious for you a little more consciously aware. Well, thanks for your perspective. And Lori, how about you?
I have the 64 twice in conscious communications and values. And I sometimes feel like my mind is like a snow globe that's been shaken. In that there's just all kinds of fragments of thoughts floating all over the place. But if I just wait, it all settles down and then I can see clearly. And
Wow.
it does, there's a waiting period. I don't have the 47, but something happens just in breathing through it. And I've noticed that there's a lot of 64s, because there's an anxiety when everything's confusing. I know in my foundation courses, there were a lot of 64s in there. And I think among us, there's a number of 64s, and human design is one way of making sense of all of, the confused fragments of experiences and the way the world is. And I'm an astrologer also, and I've been doing it for 30 years. And it suddenly made my life make sense, because it was just lots of information and pieces of fragments of memories, etc. So I find that a system also helps with the 64. And there's the element of the past, which also seems to keep coming up. And I have a friend who has the 64 twice, and he is always talking about past lives, and to the point of obsession. But, I understand now why he does that, because that's his way of making sense of the present. And I know for myself that certain fragments of thoughts from the past will keep coming back, and often about relationships, for example. And I've noticed a way to work with that is to ask myself questions about why this is coming up again, what's going on right now, or can I look at it from another person's point of view or something to make it more interesting, because otherwise, or to make sense, to get some value out of these fragments of memories. Otherwise, it becomes like a repetitious cycle. So that's some of what I've been doing with the energy of the 64.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, Lori. That was such a great way to talk about that. I love the snow globe visual. That's a beautiful way to think about how this happens, and to allow ourselves to just let it settle, to know we don't have to do anything about it, and to just observe the thoughts that are coming back, even if they're ones that keep coming back from previous. I know that I've had that happen as well. And in my experience, it's been things that have come back have been things that I've been now ready to look at, or have new information on, or can find a new way to consider, what was maybe something from the past that was unresolved, or that I wanted to look further into. So it's a beautiful, beautiful analogy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The worst thing is if something from the past keeps coming up and you don't get any new insights, then it really feels like you're on the hamster wheel. And I think the value of the 64 is that you can get new insights, but it's a pretty active process, I find, mentally, to try to turn the prism of the experience and look at it from different angles.
Yeah, for sure. And again, remembering too that that how much we need other people to help us make sense of that stuff, especially when it's our own things, that it's our own issues or our own memories that are coming up that we maybe are being presented with yet again. I find things come back in light of new information and new people in my life, and that the prism changes again. So, but anyways, it's wonderful to understand this system and have a place to help it make sense, and to just remember to not get too caught up in trying to solve our own issues without kind of having other people to bounce them off of, and having other people to help us see what those things are and how they could help us.
Yeah, that's a good point about asking others, and or talking to others. Once you say the memories to others, you can hear yourself, and you can also get their reactions, and that is super helpful.
Yes, awesome. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lori.
Thank you.
And Leanna, did you still have something you wanted to add?
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Leanna.
Shelley. Hi, everyone. Yes, well, I just got activated, but then I feel like it was pretty much said, just reiterating. I was just talking about this with a friend this week around how so many thoughts we're thinking are just meant to be passing us by, and that most of our systems do have a way of shining a really bright light, and it can even feel like a sensory thing on the thoughts or on the bits of information that are meant for us. And they feel different than all, because I have the 64 unconscious, but it feels different than all this information passing us by, almost like on a stream, or as BG5 says, on a movie. That was huge for me, because I have my I have a lot of pressure on the top of my head because of my design. I have what is the throat called again, Shell?
Communication and action.
Yes. And the, how do you say the anja?
That's the mental conceptualization.
And the mental conception. So that's the only two functions I have defined. So they create this pressure that drives up. So I have a very large connection with up, with the running data, as I call it, running information, running energy. And guess what my specialty is in work is helping clients and students process mental information, like how to learn how to, fine tune what is for you, or how to process, or how to be mindful, all those different things about that mind, that center. And so that one thing I like to share is what is for you is shinier. It will, and yes, that murkiness, I love that analogy because I have that as well. It's sometimes that snow globe is shaken, but mine is actually a glass that had sand on the bottom, a jar with water and sand on the bottom, or dirt on the bottom that settled, and then it gets shaken. So it's actually you can't see through it. Like you can't see anything.
Ah,
So that's the best time to let go, isn't it? When we're feeling all this activated, is let go and just let it pass you by. And then, yeah, so I just want to point out that what is for us, the information meant for us gets shiny, like it gets our attention. Do you feel that as well, Shelley? Have you felt that, your version of that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different for me. I have the 47, and actually I think maybe we'll go to that next, because we're in that place. Let me just pull up my get back to where we are here, how you get affected, how we get affected when we're connected. So this is about what Andy was talking about. This is the shadow of trait 64. So when I don't have the 64, neither does Andy, but we both have the 47. So this is about we lack the ability to piece together the inspired concepts. So when you have trait 47 but don't have the 64, so the question is, do you struggle making sense of confusion? Do you feel that life is oppressive and futile? Do you experience a lot of mental anxiety? And I can absolutely say that, yes, this has been true for me in the majority of my life. The problem with this is that you might experience a mental anxiety that life is oppressive and futile, and you can't make sense of the confusion. You're searching for ideas and inspiration and are ready to put the pieces together, but you may not know what pieces need to be put together. You may feel under pressure to act or have the answers, which can cause stress and worry. And you may forget to wait for the revelation or the aha that will truly bring the mental activity to a temporary halt with the right answer. The solution is we're designed to work with others who can provide the inspiration for the realizations. So Andy, I've got some stories here too, but I'm going to let you start and tell us what your experience has been with this in your life.
Thank you. Yeah, this really hit home today. So I was reading ahead before today, and it hadn't really connected before so strongly. But yeah, I feel this. I've always felt this very strongly, had this drive, like everybody else knew what was going on, and I had no idea. Like when hit me when I was 6 or 7, I was just looking around and thought, did everybody else get the plan or something and nobody's told me? So it's been a driving force, and it drove me in the direction I went. So I don't regret it. There's no point in regretting it, but because it brings a lot of suffering, right? It's not a pleasant way of being. Yeah, and I also maybe I misread it, but I also resonated with as soon as I feel like I'm starting to understand something, I want to share it. That's really clear, and I always associated it with being 5, the messenger or heretic, really wanting to share things as soon as I get the insight. It happens in a meditation retreat. It really drives me nuts. The moment I feel like I get the edge of an insight, my mind starts running, and I'm literally sharing it with somebody. It's the crazy things the mind does, and it takes me a while to calm that part of me down in the beginning of a retreat. It gets very excited because all these things start to come together, and I want to share them. So I learned to just jot them down on a bit of paper, or that we're not really meant to do that. If I don't, they stay in my head. And just somebody I've been spending a lot of time with recently has the 6447. I was just looking, and I definitely find myself having realizations around her, just saying things to her. She'll just say a simple comment, will say nothing at all, and I find a lot comes out. And it's all in this area that this happens.
Wow. Yeah, that's you've triggered a few things for me as well, that this happens for me a lot, where I tend to, and I thought it was more the open communication and action, because often I will be able to pick out what needs to be said, but I don't know where it comes from. And other people that have open communication and action doesn't necessarily happen that way for them. But I think what happens for me is that I sense the confusion that's going on around me. I pick up on everything that people are confused about. And I know definitely when I was younger, this feeling that things were oppressive and futile, that had huge impact on me. I had a constant mental pressure that I was here to somehow solve the problems of the world. And I come from a family that likes to do that. My aunts and my mom used to sit around the table and talk about all the things that were going wrong in the world and how they would fix them. So I come by that honestly. I guess I learned how to do that at a young age, pay attention to what was happening and care about wanting to fix it. But recognizing just how much I would get to a place where it felt like it was pointless because it was never going to change, and that I didn't have control over it and I couldn't do anything anyway. That was a lot of pressure in my, I call it my pre-BG5 life, because once I understood BG5 and saw what was going on and could see why my brain had been under so much pressure my whole life, to be continually looking for answers, continually trying to make sense of the confusion, continually doubting why things were happening the way they were happening, and funneling that all in through to the point where the 47 for me would just all of a sudden come up with an aha or some kind of a revelation. And I, like you, Andy, would, the messenger as well, and the need to just want to tell everybody about it right away. I learned that early on too, that just because I went through this process in my brain and put all these pieces together, I always thought that if I could just tell people the facts, that they'd come to the same revelation. And I realized that it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. We all come to our own revelations in our own timing. I love that you said, though, Andy, that you have this ability to kind of just sense what needs to be said, or sense that revelation that thing that needs to be revealed, that's just come to you and pops out of your mouth. You can sense that when it's the right time to say something like that, though, correct? And I have had people say to me, where did that come from? I don't know. It was just hanging in the air there. I feel like more I was a conduit for it, as opposed to, it didn't come from my mind. It just was hanging there in the air, in amongst all the confusion. And here it is. Here's the clarity of thought that just is here right now. I'm just giving it voice. That's kind of how it's worked for me. So thank you. Does anybody else online have the 47 or anything else they want to share about anyone they know who has the 47? Oh, let's see. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. And I'll give everybody a few minutes to think about what we should focus on for this next week, with all three of these inspiration traits activated this week. While I talk about our website and our courses, and showing that you can join up for getting our this free report, this trait of the day that comes to your inbox that some people have been mentioning. You can read it every morning so you know what's going on in the transits. And we've also got our past episodes in our free resource library online, so you can go back and review these anytime. And we really appreciate people joining us and adding your perspectives. It really makes the conversation really rich. And we're also we are starting all of our courses again. September has our foundations and our BG5 certification and our cycles and our profit potential starting new. Linda Brontwick is teaching the profit potential course starting tomorrow, I believe that one is. So there's all kinds of things going on for anybody who wants to jump in and feel the time is right to get started. We'd love to have you. There's still time to join up. Usually even in up to the first 2 weeks of class, you're still able to join, because everything's recorded and all the handouts and the forum is there. So if you wanted to jump in a little late and get started, we're happy to have you. Oh yes, so Anik did start her foundation course. She mentioned that, and that went wonderful. I got to be with her in that class today, and there's still time to join her if you want to get started. We've just had the first introductory session, which is free online if you want to review it, and we'll start again with class 2 starts next week, and we'll have a little intro at the hour before class to get to know the students in the class. So there's still time to sign up to join Anik in her class. So thank you everybody, and I'm gonna just say who's let me see who's ready to talk about what they think this week will bring and what we should focus on. What would be a good thing to focus on? Oh, Lori has raised her hand. Lori, hang on, are you able to speak still?
Yes, I just had a question for those who have the 47. Is there a particular drive, and it's going to be the next trait this week, so is there a particular drive, I think you both mentioned, to share your formalizations with others, would you say?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to what we were talking about, the 64 being that confusion being like a birthing process.
Mhm.
It is kind of like that for me as well, that the confusion is there, and the more I try to make sense of the confusion, it does feel like a gestation period. And many people have mentioned that takes some time for it to process and just allow it to be there. But the minute that it lands, the minute that it makes sense, I find, like Andy, if I don't tell somebody about it, I kind of lose the essence of it. And I think that's maybe the drive to want to share it right away, is to put it into words, because it can often come just like dreams do. Sometimes they're hard to explain to people. And so the realization can come at first. For me, it can feel a bit like a dream. And until I give it form, until I either write it down or share it with somebody, and my process of sharing it with somebody helps me get more clarity on it as well. Andy, I don't know if is that how it kind of works for you as well? And you have that similar experience?
Oh, sorry, I was just on the other screen having a quick look at Facebook.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, yeah, and it's I mean, we are a synthesis, right? It's so hard to say, because the sharing, it's a part of the sharing circuit, and that's big in my chart, that circuitry in the 5th line.
Right.
So that's what I feel, that
Yep.
Things are meant to essentially want to get to the throat to be expressed or taken action on, right?
Would you say that because these are projected it's a part of a projected channel, that you would need to wait for an invitation before sharing your aha moment?
I mean, in terms of experience, like nobody wants to just have advice thrown at them. So it's more of it's in my head, you know, there's not usually someone around when these things come. And yeah, I'm learning more and more, as Shelley explained so well, that sense that these insights and, you know, different teachings we've had in our lives, they just pop out of our mouths at the right moment when the time is right. It's more like that. So I don't know, what occurs is my urge to write them down. That's one way to express them, and so I write them down, and then rather than look for somebody to teach this big lesson to who isn't looking for it.
Yeah.
That seems like a good synthesis of our advice for this week, is to sit with the confusion. Then when you get your aha moment, which, because 47 is coming next, to wait for the right moment to share it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a wonderful encapsulation, Lori. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing today. And Rebecca.
Yeah, I know you've been saying it throughout, but it's like that birthing process, and that's exactly what this feels like. And in the I Ching, the 64 is the last, so it's almost like the space between the contractions. And it's like it's a breath out, it's an ending just before the breath in and a new beginning.
Beautiful. I love how you've expressed that. That's a wonderful way to think about it. Thank you so much for sharing today.
You're welcome.
How about you, Anna?
Yeah, I like those last two consolidations there. In terms of what people can watch for, and several people have already mentioned this in different ways. Since this is collective, not all these thoughts are ours.
Mm.
And you don't have to do anything with them. Some of them are yours, and you'll feel a different energy from the ones that are talking to you. Kind of like walking through a mall, you're stimulated by all kinds of stuff. But if you go chase it all, you're a mess. You can kind of walk through the mall and just select what you're there for. You know, also, when it is your thought or more personal, but I guess what I want to say is there's a lot of archetypal energy that goes on in this trait. And it's only when you individuate it, when you find a personal connection with it, that it's going to make sense. And so maybe over the week or over the time that it's still a transit, just check that out. Does this feel like something I can use, or that's starting to make sense to me? If I just let it rest, is something coming from it? Or is it just sort of this stimulation level that's so much information? So maybe just kind of track your awareness with that.
Beautiful. Beautifully said, Anna. Thank you so much. I love that analogy of the mall. We're all here living in this great big place with so much stimulation around us, really paying attention to being tuned into ourselves and what pieces of it are for us. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here today. It's wonderful to have.
I'm sorry, I need to hop off
Okay.
because I have another meeting, but thank you all. Appreciate
Thanks.
you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Anna. And how about for you, Andy?
What's been coming up for me is coming back to the bodies. What's sticking in my mind is something earlier someone said about some things keep coming back to us, like there's still something to learn or understand. And it's not meant to be a purely mental process, right? I mean, even with studying BG5, it's on a screen, we're reading, it's not meant to be purely mental. So what came to mind is usually there's a sensation in the body associated with a thought. Something keeps coming back to us and it's sticking. It's usually very noticeable if we look at the body. So I've had an awful lot of success with seeing, for example, okay, this keeps coming back and I have a feeling in the throat. So it's about, what have I not said? What hasn't been expressed? If it's in the stomach, it may be, it can be different things, fear or worry. If it's the heart, it's usually some kind of hurt. Being aware of what's going on in the body can really give us a clue to what this thing that keeps coming back, why it's sticking and where it sticks. So if something like that is happening for you, we can do it anytime, but lying down, doing a body scan, or actually meditating, or simply looking at it can really bring some great insights.
Wow. Wonderful. Awesome. Thanks, Andy, for just bringing that awareness to each of us that while we may tend to live in our heads, and especially this week with so many activations in the mind, to just really remember to tune into our bodies as well and to see where the two may be connected. I love that. That's wonderful I'm going to pay more attention to that myself. Thanks so much for sharing and joining us today, Andy. Really appreciate having you here.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
And Nick, and we'll let you
Yeah, absolutely.
close
Thank
today.
you. So great sharings already. So many things that have been said are so true about experiencing those gates, the pressure of the inspiration center. And maybe just from my perspective, don't get overwhelmed from doubt and confusion during the next 2 days. Just watch it, observe it, and please do not take any decisions based on the pressure you might feel finding any answers. This is specifically one thing I would just recommend. And as Andy said, it's crucial to reconnect with the body rather than trying to figure out in your head what's going on and how to fix this. So whenever I'm in doubt, I just try to connect with my body, do some sports or do whatever so that you feel yourself and so that you don't think yourself.
Awesome. Wonderful, Anit. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for wrapping that all into a lovely package. And I just want to go to Leanna. Was there anything you wanted to add, Leanne?
No, that's beautiful. I love finishing off on Anik. It's gorgeous.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for being here today and helping me on my very first BG5 Live. So happy to have had such great support from all of you and all of you that joined us today. And please do join us again next week. We're here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock in some form or other, some combination or other. We'd love to have you join us. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, and Shelley.
Great job, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.